The 2025 NBA Draft is now a thing of the past. To commemorate this today, I wanted to give you guys my way too early grades for every team in the league based on the picks and trades they made. Who just turned their franchise around? Who got the best haul of young talent? And who closed their eyes and swung for the fences down 0-2? That's what we are going to talk about today. Before we get started though, please do me a big favor and like the video, as it helps me out far more than I think you guys realize. Also, please consider becoming a channel member if you want to help me out directly, and subscribe for more basketball related content. I am trying to hit 1 million subscribers before the start of the Summer League, so let's make that happen. The first team we have to talk about are the undeserving winners, the Dallas Mavericks. They only had a single draft pick, and this lone pick of theirs only had a 1% chance of being the first overall, and they got it. Cooper Flagg now heads to a team built to win right away, one that will battle through what looks to be one of the most challenging Western Conference lineups in league history. Watching him alongside their veteran roster next season should be a real treat. Let's just hope injuries stay far away. I'm giving Dallas a solid A for this pick. There was only one real option, and they got it right. The second team to talk about are the San Antonio Spurs, who were fortunate enough to have 2 lottery picks. With the second overall selection, they took Dylan Harper, the most electrifying guard in this year's draft, who on most years would have gone number 1. Harper joins a crowded point guard depth chart, but I envision him pretty early on, proving that he is their one of the future. With their 14th pick, they landed Carter Bryant, the 19-year-old who did not impact games much in college, but showcased a solid, well-rounded skill set including defensive versatility and shooting. Bryant is a long-term project type of choice that maybe I would have not made, but at the same time, I believe San Antonio has plenty of good to great sure-thing young players already. Taking a gamble in the late lottery is not an issue. I'm giving the Spurs an A for their choices. Up next, we have the Philadelphia 76ers, picking early in both rounds. With that heavily talked about third overall selection, they chose VJ Edgecombe, the only point guard in college basketball who came close to rivaling Dylan Harper's offensive ability, but I would say gets the edge over him for his defensive impact. VJ is a very talented young guard who already has experience playing alongside and against NBA players thanks to his time spent with the Bahamas national team. He may come off the bench his rookie year behind Tyrese Maxey and Jared McCain, but don't read that as he not being ready to play right away. The Sixers are going to be contending for a top spot out east, and VJ will be an impactful player from day one. With their 35th overall pick, they took Johni Broome, a very skilled and well-rounded backup big. I expect him to have a significant role in Philly, especially with the inevitable injuries that will come Joel Embiid's way. Philly easily gets an A. Up next, the Charlotte Hornets made a lot of noise on draft night by being involved in one of the more significant trades as well as owning multiple first-round picks. With their 4th overall selection, they chose Kon Knuppel, the man tagged by many as the safest selection in this year's lottery outside the top 2. Kon will bring defensive instinct and effort Charlotte has desperately been needing, and his floor spacing will also be a major help as they try to create room for LaMelo Ball and Brandon Miller to create. They also managed to walk away with the 29th overall pick after trading their starting center Mark Williams, and with this they took a risk taking Liam McNeely, a former destined lottery pick whose stock tanked after his poor freshman season and unremarkable combine results. But McNeely has shown he can perform at a high level in an off-ball role in the past. That would be his exact job in Charlotte, so perhaps he'll look better in the pros. In the second round, Charlotte also had 2 selections. With the 33rd overall pick, they took Zion James, an upperclassman backup guard who should bring shooting and defense, and he's a former teammate of Kon Knuppel. And with their 34th pick, they took Ryan Kalkbrenner, one of the best rim protectors in all of college basketball. I think there's a good chance he becomes their starting 5 almost right away. I am giving Charlotte an A for these selections. I think their team just got a lot better. Up next, one of the first major surprises of draft night, the Utah Jazz opted to pick the teenager who was too good to show up for their private meeting. With the 5th overall pick, Ace Bailey brings an impressive bag of offensive creation and confidence. Bailey may be the most offensively skilled player in Utah from day one. but it will be interesting to watch his defense and off-ball play now that he is with a team that he did not want to be a part of. Utah also wanted to guarantee they walked away from tonight's draft with the upperclassman point guard Walter Clayton Jr. In order to set this up, they traded their 21st and 43rd picks along with 2 future seconds. Clayton Jr. may be the point guard of their future. His leadership, poise, and experience competing at the highest stage of college basketball is exactly what Utah wants to lead their team for years to come. And with their 53rd overall pick, they took John Tonji, the super duper senior who can do pretty much anything a team needs. If he was 3 years younger, I think he'd be a first round pick easily. I bet Utah will use him. The Jazz made 1 risky pick and 2 safe ones. I'm giving them a B. Up next, the Washington Wizards had themselves a fun draft night that included 2 first-rounders plus a second. With the 6th overall pick, they took Trey Johnson, a player some had mocked going as high as 3rd thanks to his 3-point shooting and physical attributes. Trey gives DC exactly what they need, a floor spacer and alternative shot creator. I expect him to be a major producer in year 1. Remember what I just said about Utah? Well, it was DC who landed both of their picks. With the 21st pick, Washington took Will Riley, a choice I am not in love with, but Riley is a confident creator. If his shot can fall, he will have a role in the NBA. And with their 43rd overall pick, they took Jamir Watkins, a player I was not really that high on. I am giving DC a C for these picks. I like Trey, but the other 2 I would say are questionable. Up next, the New Orleans Pelicans made draft night headlines for their draft night decisions. First, the good. They chose Jeremiah Fears 7th overall, a terrific point guard who showcased a lot in his lone year of college, but the 3-point shot was a concern. I don't love him as a prospect, but I understand the choice. What I really don't love and don't understand though was their decision to trade from 23rd to 13th to select Derek Queen. Queen is a good player who in a vacuum I like. His offensive creativity is exactly what teams should be looking for in the modern NBA. But his floor spacing needs to improve, otherwise playing alongside Zion Williamson isn't going to work. The major problem though was the fact that they also traded next year's first round pick to make that deal happen. A first rounder that was destined to be either their own or Milwaukee's based on whichever one ended up being better. So if this roster doesn't work out in this brutal Western Conference, they won't have a lottery pick as a safety net. And even if it does work out and Milwaukee falls apart, they miss out on a free lottery pick. It was a big sacrifice for a player who they could have just taken 7th overall if they wanted that badly. But it's done. At least in their trade, they managed to take the 40th overall pick as well, and with this they took Micah Peavy, who I actually am really high on. He's an extremely talented shooter, perimeter orchestrator, and defender. I anticipate him being a member of their rotation pretty quickly. I'm going to give New Orleans a D overall for their selections. The players are alright, but I worry Queen does not fit their team, and trading next year's first was a foolish choice. Up next, we have the Brooklyn Nets, the team with a record 5 first-round picks. Interestingly, they, a team in need of literally anything, decided to draft 3 point guards. At 8th overall, they selected Igor Demon, a 6'9" Russian with Josh Giddey-esque skills minus the jump shot. At 19th, they took Nolan Traore, the French guard, compared to Killian Hayes, who also has had a hard time shooting the ball in his pro career. Then a couple selections later, at 27th overall, they chose Ben Saraf, a 3rd European one who has experience leading a team in the Euro Cup but also struggled with his long-range shooting. To make up for these shooting woes though, with their 16th overall pick, they surprised many and chose Drake Powell, a similar project type of player to Carter Bryant, an American 5-star teenager who failed to make much of an impact in college, but at least shot the ball well and projects to be a versatile defensive player. And with their final first rounder at 28th overall, they landed Danny Wolf, the highly sought after 7-footer who you could argue fell on draft night, but showed he could space the floor, attack off the dribble, and rebound in college. Brooklyn is going to be an interesting team to pay attention to this coming season. Over half of their roster will be 23 and younger. It might end up looking like a college AAU team. Even with their questionable combination of players, I'm giving them a B. Up next, the Toronto Raptors made a puzzling decision to draft Colin Murray Boyles with their 9th overall pick, the undersized power forward who cannot space the floor. That is not a great descriptor, but on the bright side, he was one of the best defensive players in all of college basketball last year, and he has shown he can run the floor, attack the rim, and rebound far bigger than he is. Toronto is stacked around the perimeter and already has too many shot creators, so I have warmed up to this selection since they made it. With their 39th overall pick, they took upperclassman guard Elijah Martin, an undersized, solid floor spacer and perimeter defender. I am not sure there is any room in the depth chart for him to play much though in year one, so we'll see how that goes. Toronto surprised me in this draft. I personally would not have made either of their picks, but I think Murray Boyles is going to be a solid player. I'm going to give them a C. The Phoenix Suns have been making a lot of noise and moves over the past week. They entered the draft season with Kevin Durant, a late first and a late second, but they leave with a lottery pick, 2 early seconds, Mark Williams, Jalen Green, and Dylan Brooks. Not too shabby. With their 10th overall pick, they took Kaman Malawak, the South Sudanese big man from Duke, who many had projected in the first half of the lottery, so him falling into their laps may have been a major steal. With their 31st overall pick, they took Rasheer Fleming, a huge surprise. Fleming was a first-round talent who brings shooting, rim finishing, shot creation, rebounding, and defense to a team in desperate need of it. Most second-rounders don't make much of an impact in the NBA, but Fleming almost certainly will play a significant role in Phoenix from day one. They also took the 41st overall pick, Kobe Brea, one of the very best shooters in all of college basketball. Unfortunately, he is like the 6th shooting guard in their depth chart, so I really don't know how much court time he's going to get in year one, but he's a good player to have. I'm giving Phoenix an A for this draft. Maybe you don't love their KD trade haul, but I really appreciate the amount of young talent they added to their roster. The Memphis Grizzlies ended up moving into the lottery, and with the 11th overall pick took Cedric Coward, one of the most hyped upperclassmen in all of college basketball. Coward blew away scouts with his length and athleticism at the combine and projects to be a real two-way threat in the league. Memphis was in dire need of help in the forward positions, especially defensively. Hopefully Howard can fill this role. With their 48th overall pick, they took Javon Small, one of the more impressive ones in college. Memphis had a really hard time getting the ball up the court in the playoffs when Ja Morant was not on the floor. Small hopefully can provide them some ball handling and creation. They also managed to take the final pick of the draft at 59th overall, and with it they surprised me and took someone named Jamai Mashak, a 6-point per game senior best known for his perimeter defense. He must have impressed in his private workout because I've never heard of this guy. I'm giving Memphis a B for their picks. They definitely took risks here. We may wind up looking back and calling them geniuses or fools. The Chicago Bulls finished last season hot, but they no doubt still have jobs to fill on the court. With their very valuable 12th overall pick, they chose Noah Essendje. I'm not sure how I feel about this one. Chicago definitely needed a center, but they evidently did not feel that one came close enough to the impact they envisioned Essendje would have. I think he'll be a good rim attacker and defender in the NBA, but I worry about his shooting and his defense is unproven. Late in the second round at 55th overall, they also snagged Lakeland Ulbrich, an Australian big man who played a major role with the championship-winning Illawarra Hawks. Unlike most late second-round picks, I bet Ulbrich will have a role pretty quickly for them. I'm giving Chicago a B for these picks. The Oklahoma City Thunder flopped their way to a championship in 2025, making themselves one of the most hated teams in the league in the process. It was going to be interesting to see who they chose with their small bundle of useful picks. At 15th overall, they opted to shore up their interior presence with Thomas Sorber, a very different type of player than anyone currently on their roster. Sorber gives them a big body to clean up the glass and defend the rim. I think his presence off the bench will be a major benefit to Chet Holmgren. At 44th, they took Brooks Barnhizer, a floor orchestrator and defender. He might turn into a glue guy one day, but for now, I really don't expect him to be much more than a G-Leaguer. OKC, I'm going to give a B. I like Sorber, and I'm not really expecting much out of Barnhizer. The Portland Trailblazers shocked all the Americans watching by selecting Hansen Yang with their 16th overall pick. Yang is a guy I hyped up about 8 months ago before he was even on anyone's top 100 big board. He is a skilled, patient, well-rounded, massive center who can do anything you need offensively and defend the paint at a superb clip. The truth is, Americans see a Chinese basketball player and immediately assume they are slow-footed. But obviously, the NBA teams who worked him out privately recognized how foolish this stigma is. Of course, they have a massive logjam at the 5 now with Yang, Donovan Clingan, DeAndre Ayton, Robert Williams, and Duop Reith, but that just means they have trade bait, doesn't it? Some people won't like this, but I'm giving Portland an A. I think this was a very smart draft decision. The Minnesota Timberwolves, fresh off back-to-back conference finals appearances, decided to use their 17th overall pick on Joan Behringer. That made for 3 centers in a row in the draft. Behringer is looking to follow in the footsteps of Rudy Gobert. He is an incredibly raw project, but the size, length, and athleticism is there. If he studies the game, he could turn into a great rim-protecting 5. I did not expect him to be selected so high a month ago, but NBA teams fell in love when they got to see him in person. At 45th, they took another young project at the center position in Rocco Zikarsky. It's very interesting to me that Minnesota took 2 guys not ready to contribute from day one who play the exact same position. But I suppose they just wanted to ensure they found a backup to Rudy Gobert no matter what. Having a solid defender in the middle has worked very well for them. Let's see if they can carry this tradition on. I'm giving them a B for their choices. The Miami Heat took the best point guard available at 20th overall and chose Kasparas Jakubionis, the Lithuanian shot creator who missed a lot of threes and committed far too many turnovers during his 1 year of college. But scouts like his size, skills, and confidence. Playing in a disciplined system like Miami should hopefully help him shore up the riskier plays and turn him into a good lead ball handler. Miami only had 1 pick, and I think they made an excellent decision with it. They will get an A from me. The Atlanta Hawks have had themselves a busy week. After flaming out in the play-in, they smelled the blood in the water of the East and began making all-in moves to compete in 2026. They turned Georges Niang and a second-rounder into Kristaps Porzingis, which is incredible. They also were the ones who swindled the Pelicans earlier, landing both the 23rd pick plus next year's first, which will most likely be in the lottery. In this year's draft, with their lone pick at 23rd, they took Asa Newell, a guy I was relatively high on and am pleased to see land in a good situation. Newell will come off the bench behind Jalen Johnson and likely will get some minutes at the 5 when Porzingis is inevitably hurt. He may not be the name that jumps off the paper at you, but Atlanta did an amazing job here. They get an A. The Sacramento Kings pulled off a draft night deal, moving a very complicated 2027 protected first to get the 24th overall pick, which they used on Nick Clifford, another well-respected and sought-after upperclassman point guard. The Kings are clearly trying their best to remain all in after making a plethora of questionable trades over the past 20 years, and Clifford gives them win-now depth at the 1. I don't like seeing young players with potential end up in Sacramento, but at least Clifford is already well developed, and if things don't work out, he could have success elsewhere. At 42nd overall, Sacramento also took Maxime Reynaud, the upperclassman big who showcased good shooting and rebounding in college. A lot of people predicted he would go in the first round, so him falling all the way to the 40s is a blessing for the Kings, who need help on the interior because behind Sabonis, it gets kinda weak. I know I was just slandering this team a little bit, but they made some good picks in this draft. I'm gonna give them an A. The Orlando Magic took Jace Richardson with their 25th pick. A very interesting prospect because though he has NBA pedigree and shot the ball really well in college, he struggled defending, he has a weak handle of the ball, doesn't use his offhand well, and unfortunately he is on the short side. A lot of people anticipated him to fall on draft night, and he did. Orlando needed shooting though, and they got it. The Magic also took Noah Penda with their 32nd overall pick. He has a ways to go with refining his game, but the blueprint is definitely there. Orlando made solid picks, but could they have done better is the question. I'm gonna say yeah, I'm gonna give them a C. The Boston Celtics have entered a retooling year as they sent away Kristaps Porzingis and Drew Holiday, getting Anthony Simons, Georges Niang, and a second-round pick in return. But thankfully they owned their first, and with it at 20th overall they selected Hugo Gonzalez, the Spanish wing who spent this past season competing in the world's second toughest league, the EuroLeague. Though he produced very little here, Hugo is a tall and strong perimeter player who reads the game at a very high level. I'm not really expecting much from him in year 1, but he was a solid selection at this spot. In the second round, Boston had 2 picks, and with their 46th overall one, they chose Amari Williams, one of my favorite bigs in this class. Unlike most second round centers, Amari did most of his damage as an offensive hub type center. His passing was superb and his rim finishing was also very nice. Boston's center position is a question mark right now, so we may get to see him play a good bit this year. And with their second rounder at 57th, they took Max Shulga, a Ukrainian wing who does not blow you away athletically, but more than proved he could create, shoot, and finish against more athletic competition. Boston finally adds some pieces to their new era. I'm going to give them an A for their picks. The final team picking in the first round were the LA Clippers, who drafted for a position in need, taking Yannick Conan Niederhauser with their 30th overall pick. He could be the next Derek Lively, or he could be the next Jackson Hayes. At the very least, he gives LAC a legitimate backup 7-footer. With their 52nd overall pick, they took Kobe Sanders, a do-it-all upperclassman wing who will bring energy to their bench. I'm not sure if he'll get much court time in year one, but you never know. I'm giving LAC a B for their choices here. I really hope Niederhauser works out for them. The LA Lakers entered the draft in major need of a center, as that was their most glaring weakness down the stretch of the season. And they managed to trade up on draft night, so all signs were pointing towards them filling this role with a solid player. But instead, for some reason beyond my pay grade, they opted to select upperclassman Adu Tiro, 36th overall. A hard-working rim attacker and good defensive instincts player with long arms, but undersized for a wing and with a terrible three-point shot. I really don't understand this pick. I haven't given out any Fs yet, and I'm gonna give one here. The LA Lakers get an F. This didn't make any sense. The Detroit Pistons only had one pick this year, and with it at 37th overall, they took Chaz Lanier. An excellent decision. Lanier may be the best shooter picked in all of this draft. The upperclassman 2-guard can run around screens and put up shots very fast. I think he'll get minutes right away in the league. I'm giving Detroit an A. The Indiana Pacers are entering an offseason of mystery as they are without the face of their franchise Tyrese Halliburton for the next year. Because of this, they decided to draft for depth at the 1 and took Cam Jones 38th overall. An inconsistent shooter but good playmaker and rim attacker in college. They are surely hoping they can trust him with real minutes in year 1. With their second pick at 54th overall, they took Talon Peter, a fascinating prospect whose name completely evaded me leading up to draft night. Peter very quickly dropped out of his school his freshman year, transferring from D1 to D2. He then had a good but unremarkable 3 years with the Arkansas Tech Division II team before deciding to give D1 one more chance in 2025. And this year, it went pretty well. He shot the 3-ball crazy good at 45% and entered NBA radars as a result. I'm not sure about what else he can do other than shoot, but shooting is really important in the NBA. I'm going to give Indy a B for these picks. The Milwaukee Bucks only had one pick this year. At 47th overall, they selected Bogoljub Markovic, the Serbian do-it-all forward who showcased an incredibly well-rounded skill set this past year in the Adriatic League. I thought he deserved to go in the first round. It is amazing how far he fell. I think Milwaukee got themselves a real steal here. I'm going to give them an A. The Cleveland Cavaliers only had 2 late seconds this year, and with their first at 49th overall, they chose Tyrese Proctor, a Duke upperclassman guard who should be able to handle the ball, shoot, and defend. He has a ton of experience playing alongside current-day NBA players, so perhaps he will outshine most late second-round picks. And with their 58th overall pick, they actually surprised me by taking Saliou Niang, an undersized Senegalese forward who spent this past season competing in Italy. He is a very raw and unrefined player, but the physical tools of an athletic rim attacker and defender are there. I'm giving Cleveland a C for these picks. They aren't really that good, but you aren't really going to get anyone good this late, so it's the best they could do. The New York Knicks only had one pick, and with it at 51st overall, they took Mohamed Diawara, a small rim-attacking forward with length and athleticism. But he's very raw, he did not protect the rim, he did not shoot the ball well. Diawara is a few years away from being a few years away, I fear. I'm pretty surprised New York chose him over the more skilled guys that were definitely still available. I'm going to give them a D. And finally, the team picking with the lowest possible spots of 2 very late second rounders, the Golden State Warriors selected Alex Tui 52nd overall. Not a big name NBL rising star, but arguably the most talented of the bunch. Tui might give them some needed strength and length in their forward rotation, which is pretty exceptional for such a late pick. I thought he was going to go in the 30s. And at 56th overall, they took Will Richard, An off-ball guard from Florida who defended and attacked the rim, alright. I'm not really sure what to expect from him in the NBA. I'm going to give Golden State a C for these picks. I'm surprised they did not take a center. And that wrapped up every team's 2025 NBA draft. If you're wondering my thoughts on Denver, they didn't have any picks, so they get an NA. Thank you guys for watching my 2025 NBA draft series. It was a lot of fun scouting these players and talking about them and predicting where they would end up. Please let me know how your team did on draft night. And also, let me know who you think the biggest winners and losers were. I will see you all next time.